Hello, Maverick fans. Welcome to another edition of the Mavpuckcast. Jason here, John with me to talk some more UNO hockey. John, how are you doing? And how you want to kick us off here with a series against CC?
I'm doing great. We are in the stretch run. The CC series kicks off the final 8 games, 4 series of the regular season. This is always an interesting time in college hockey. In my mind, it's what makes college hockey great. And it's why I love the sport, because there's a lot of unpredictability down the stretch. Just because a team might be down in the conference standings, you can't underestimate their ability to pull off a couple of good games in a series. So always very exciting. Certainly, this was an exciting series coming into CC. Lots of interesting festivities, 2 great crowds for the games, which we'll be talking about in a little bit in our Things You Missed at Baxter Arena segment. But we've got to start off on Friday night, and exciting atmosphere, exciting game. UNO was wearing the military jerseys. It was very difficult to see the numbers on those jerseys because they used a specific type of camouflage, Jason, that apparently ships in World War I used. I did not know this, and the camouflage worked because I couldn't tell who the players were. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, what you thought of the jerseys after seeing them in person. But first period, 15:48 in, Ty Mueller gets the scoring started. And I got to tell you, Ty's really good at getting the first goal for UNO in games this season. In 6 regular season games, he has been the guy who's gotten the scoring started for UNO. I know that is a completely bizarre stat, but I was thinking about that this weekend, and he's the guy that a lot of times gets called first and ends up getting that score for UNO. What'd you think of Ty's goal to start off the scoring for UNO?
You know, it's a great shot. It was exactly what we've expected, of Ty Mueller. We came into the season knowing that he was one of those guys we expected to be at the top of our roster for both goals and points. He's a good all-around player. He does some work in the dot for us. He's an incredible asset to have. And it's what we need. If this team's going to make home ice in the playoffs, it's going to take guys like Ty, really stepping up and performing well and being productive. And I don't put a whole lot of weight on the first or fourth or whatever kind of jazz. Like, I just like to see him get out there and get on the scoreboard.
He's had an impressive season so far, and I thought that first period for UNO was pretty impressive. There were some fans who were telling me that they thought it's some of the best hockey that they've seen from the team this season, and I thought they looked great during that first period. They had a lot of terrific opportunities. 7:58 into the second period, Caden Bolson, one of your favorite players, you've highlighted him a number of times this season, puts UNO up 2-0. I'm feeling great at that point. What'd you think of Bolson's goal? Like we said, it was hard to read the jerseys, but I could tell that was Caden out there. Saw the long hair coming out of the back of his helmet. A big, tall player. It's great to see him have success this season, and it was great to see him put UNO up 2-0.
CC's the kind of team that I'd expect him to thrive against. Like, this seems like his kind of game. Miami's kind of the same way. Like, it just seems to fit his play style well. And he did what we need him to do. He got to the scoring zones, and all around he had a really good weekend. He was, he only gets on the board once with that goal, but jumping ahead to Saturday, like, he had another solid outing on Saturday. I mean, I never really expected Randall to be where he is on this team from the scoring standpoint. You knew he was going to be a quality guy for us, but he's just had an amazing season. Randall has. Bolson's that same way. Like, I don't expect him to be, tops on the team for this stuff, but he's just one of those energy guys, and he was out there flying around. I love his skating. He's a faster skater, I think, than a lot of people give him credit for, and so I think that opens up opportunities for him. And it was just nice to see him finish, and especially with the performance he was having. Like, I really felt like he was probably one of the best forwards that we had Friday night.
Yeah, great performance by him. His second goal of the season. Originally a Minnesota recruit. When Don Lucia and the regime changed there, and Bob Motzko was brought in, he became available. A great pickup for UNO, and it's nice to see him as his career progresses start to have more success. Has only appeared in 17 games this season, so it's nice to see him take advantage of those opportunities. UNO was not able to hold the 2-0 lead late in that second period. Noah Laba for Colorado College gets a power play goal. That was when Sullivan went to the box for goaltender interference. So UNO leaves the second period up 2-1. The third period turned out to be an interesting period for UNO. 8:23 into the third period. Hunter McCown, a player we talked about on last week's podcast when we were previewing this series, gets the second power play goal for Colorado College. What did you think about UNO's play up to that point, Jason?
Well, you said it. I think the first period was our best period. What was surprising was like it was our best period, and there was a lot not to like about the way we played. We came out in the first and we looked like a team that had a few weeks off. And so while we really held the zone well, controlled the play, a lot of puck possession, which is, this team can be very difficult to play against when we possess the puck as long as we did in the first. And then we kind of lost out on that. And a lot of that came from, I hate saying bad calls, but just these really weird, yes, it's a penalty, but CC's doing the same stuff and they're not getting called. And why are we? They ran Lakoti twice before we took that goaltender interference penalty. It's like, I don't understand what the parameters are with these referees. Like, where is this line that it goes from being just incidental contact to being a penalty? And the only opportunities we had were because Colorado College couldn't count to 5. Like, the only 2 power plays we had were both too many men. And it's like, how are you not seeing everything else that's going on? And, some of that it builds the frustration with the team. And that's why after the first goal, I was really worried that if Colorado College got another power play, that might be the tying point for us, because I just felt like the guys were kind of, we can beat CC, but we can't beat CC and the refs. And they kind of it just seemed like the play just felt a little cautious and a little timid. It's just unfortunate because you need these guys to fly. You need them to play like they did in the first. You need them to control play. You need them to be not concerned about going into the grimy areas and getting involved in front of the net. And it just seemed like we were later in that game.
It's always an adventure with NCHC officials, as you and I have discussed for the last few years on this podcast. Sometimes it seems incredibly random and arbitrary, the penalties that they call. And certainly the game ended up tied after regulation 2-2. And that overtime period, a lot happened in that 5-minute overtime period. Jason, there was a penalty shot for Colorado College's Noah Laba. They called Victor Mancini for tripping. What did you think of that tripping call on Mancini? I know fans were really upset that Colorado College got the penalty shot in OT. What did you think of that call? What did you think of the penalty shots and Simon Lakozzi's save? What'd you think?
You said save. I don't know that it was a save. Like, he just loses the puck. It didn't seem like he really got, if he got anything on it, he didn't barely got anything on it. I still wonder, I watched that and my first thought live was, you're like, oh no, we have to kill off a 4-on-3. That was my concern. It was because I thought they were it was enough to call it even in overtime. And then he points to center ice and I'm thinking, I don't know how you look at that and call that separation, breakaway. Mancini was with him into the zone, and the penalty, this tripping penalty that you're calling, doesn't come till late in that cycle. So you got a defending player has the opportunity to catch up. So I still don't understand how you get to a penalty shot, but man, the environment, that arena, that sold out Baxter was just pumping when Lakoti makes the save and we're still level in overtime. And then it's not too long after that Omaha goes to the power play with an opportunity, about a minute and a half left.
Yeah, it was a tripping call on Hunter McCown that gave UNO the power play. And our guy, we've been talking about him for 5 years. Little did we know that there was going to be a plague, and we were going to get to talk about Tyler Weiss for as long as we've gotten to talk about him because of his extra COVID-allowed season. But Tyler Weiss shoots a beautiful shot, gets the goal. What'd you think about that? We've talked that Tyler's MO is as a setup artist, as an assist guy. But it was great to see him get that goal. I don't know if I've ever seen him shoot the puck that hard during a game. But boy, he was excited. The team was excited. As he said in the post-game interview, the crowd was electric. What did you think of that goal, Jason?
Yeah, it was good. I'm curious if that was a scouting or a coaching thing, because we all know that Weiss's skill set is the puck possession, the hands, his passing ability. Especially on an overtime, you're talking about a 4-on-3 power play. So as a defending forward in that situation, especially that was right off a faceoff win. So you're having to make a decision. You've got two guys that have to get covered, and you have to decide kind of where you go in there. And it was very clear that their forward coming out was more worried about Weiss going back across to the other defender, to the other kind of umbrella, then he was thinking that Weiss was going to shoot it. And, when he gets that kind of opportunity, to see him recognize that he's got the better chance if he just shoots it, and taking that, I think, is a huge step for Weiss, because he does have a good shot. It's not bad. He's just better at passing, and his ability to find some of those seams on Saturday was pretty amazing. But yeah, just to see him just kind of wind up and say, all right, I dare you to stop this. And boy, the excitement, the arena was just hopping, to go from the high of the save to the high, you're just adrenaline's going. And we get a power play, and it just no time. It was literally right off that face off. And he's like, nope, we're done now. This is over.
Brad Williams of Brad Williams Photography, a great UNO fan. I've known him for years. He got a great picture of Tyler celebrating after that goal. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll feature that on here. I loved how the players after the goal and after that overtime win went over to the student section and celebrated. I thought that was just awesome. They were really, really excited. It was great to get 2 out of 3 points in the game and get off to a good start against Colorado College. So we go into Saturday night. I was really hopeful that the team would find a way to start off the way that they finished on Saturday night. In the second period, Ty Mueller again gets the scoring started. 4:54 into the second, with assists to Jack Randall and Nolan Krenzen. UNO gets up 1-0. I was feeling pretty good at that point. And then at 13:20 in the second, Ryan Beck for Colorado College knots things up. What did you think at that point? The game's tied up. Were you thinking this is going to be deja vu? We're seeing ghosts of last night. What did you think when the game was tied 1-1, Jason?
I was honestly worried, mostly because Colorado College's goal comes off of just a poor decision on a re-entry, and you got to see that stick in the lane. You've got to know that play's not there, and go to your next option, go to a second option, go to a third option. The whole idea with hockey plays, as you might call them, is it's not a one kind of thing. It's not, this isn't NFL football, recording this on a Super Bowl Sunday, right? This isn't, we all line up, we're going to do something and we're going to see if you can stop it. You've got to know where your second and third options are, and know not to try that. And, kudos to Colorado College for capitalizing on opportunities. But it was a tight game, and it seemed like it was going to be back and forth. And this team, that's my concern is that it's just going to be that one mistake. And, our chances seem to not go, and then they just get one chance, and suddenly, then we're losing or something. Luckily, we get a power play late in the second. Jack Randall puts us up 2-1. So we still go into locker room at the end of the second with a 1-goal lead. This is where we were on Friday night.
That's right. Jack Randall scores on the 5-on-3 power play. A great position for UNO to be in at that point. And we thought that UNO went up 3-1 in the closing moments of that second period. We thought Joe LeMay had the goal for UNO. Apparently, time ran out. I try to get little video clips during these games if I can. I did not have the clock. He shot it. The lamp lit. We heard the horn, but we did not see the clock. I did not go back and watch the webcast of the game. Tough one for UNO fans. We were hoping that would have been a great position to be up 3-1. Ultimately, we weren't. 2-1 going into that third period. It was a close spot. Third, yeah.
Yes. I think we got to talk about that because I did go back and watch the broadcast.
Okay, so tell me
because we're gonna talk about another thing that happens as to the main reason for me going back to watch that. Okay. But this, it seems like basic stuff that we're missing, right? We've complained about it on the podcast before about how the NCHC or Omaha or someone has made the decision that when play stops, when it's under review and the refs are looking at it, people viewing at home don't get to see what's going on. All they see is what we see on the big Jumbotron, right? And I get it. I understand NHL's the same way and stuff. You might throw the replay up there once before the refs start looking at it, but you're trying not to influence them. And NHL is different because they're making the decision back in Toronto and the on-ice officials are making the decision in the arena. So there is that element of, if all the fans are yelling and screaming, are you influencing the refs in one direction or another? So I understand that. But if I'm sitting at home, you should be able to put up a feed to show me what they're looking at. And the announcers, be that radio announcers or TV specific announcers or students or whoever are running that broadcast, should be able to talk through what you're seeing. Because on the broadcast, it was very clear that the NCHC clock that was on the TV was at zeros before LeMay shoots the puck. And for fans maybe that are listening to this podcast that maybe don't know all the rules, hockey's somewhat different, again, than football. We're not talking about this imaginary glass plane that you have to break. The puck has to completely cross the line before time goes over, otherwise no goal, right? But they never once show the overhead look that's time synced to the game clock, the official game clock. They never once even showed what the official game clock was. All we heard was the announcers talking about what they saw and talking about the same thing that I could see, which was the NCHC clock, the clock on the broadcast. But that's not the official game clock. And that's the question I have is, where is the official game clock? Why can we not just put a time synced game clock up there? What is this, a technical limitation, or are we actually making the decision that we don't want to go through this effort and put that up there for fans?
Yeah, that is definitely it's definitely some good commentary on your part, Jason.
Yeah, my rant is over. I'm sorry.
Jason's rant is over. We haven't had a good rant from Jason in a while. Obviously, these game broadcasts, unless you're talking about the North Dakota one, which is produced by Midcoast Sports, or the St. Cloud one, which is produced by one of their local affiliates along with the students, or the Denver one, which a number of their games are done by Altitude Sports. It's hard to get that professional production value. And I really think one of the goals for UNO over the next 5 years needs to be upping the production quality of those games, because it would be nice for fans at home or fans who are at the game, who come home after the game and pull up the game on NCHC TV, to be able to see what was going on with some of the replays. Having watched college basketball for years on TV or college football, if there's ever a question about time, you see that clock running when the shot goes off. For example, in basketball, when somebody's at half court and they throw up a shot and it launches to the basket and it goes in and there's some question about time, they'll go back and look and see where the clock was at. So I know fans would have liked more information. So I'm glad you went back and looked at that. So we go into the third period. It's tied. For most of that third period, UNO very nearly had a third goal with about 5 minutes left. UNO possessed the puck in their offensive zone a long time on a power play at that point. but the puck slid outside of the zone. Pennington brought it back in. What'd you think of that one, Jason? Because I know we were talking about that during the game and after the game as well, when people couldn't tell if it'd gone out of the zone, but it did go out of the zone on that play when Pennington brought it back in.
Yeah, it was out of the zone. I even had fans around me because, that happened fairly early in the power play, and the goal happened quite a bit later, and the puck never leaves. And there was some confusion as to what that ruling is. So to clear that up, because if the puck had come out of the zone at any point in time prior to the goal, and UNO had to come back in and reestablish, that play couldn't be reviewed. Colorado College can come back and say, hey, 10 minutes ago you missed an offsides call, so therefore nothing in the next 10 minutes counts. Like, that's not the way it works. It has to be relative to the goal. And so because we had kept the puck in as a result of the call on the ice, then that's why they were allowed to go back and review it, even though it was like a minute and a half time traveling back. But I remember when it happened, I was like, that's offsides. Like, I was 99% sure, sitting where we were, that it was offside. So I'm sure that they were going to have a look down the line that was going to show them that it was offsides. And so I wasn't surprised by that call. I mean, it's hard to say that I was surprised by the first call with the time clock too, but I mean, that's just because I don't have a accurate sense of 0.1 seconds. So.
Right. Exactly right. So, another missed opportunity for UNO, and then late with about 17 seconds left in the third period, Noah Laba gets a goal for Colorado College, ties it up late. We're going to overtime.
But that was another controversial goal, because that's the one that was airmailed into the air, and we had already used our timeout earlier to challenge a head contact penalty, and didn't go our way. And so UNO doesn't have a timeout, but they still wanted to challenge. Don't know how this all ends up shaking out, but they still wanted to challenge that goal was offsides, and the call on the ice stood. And so we ended up going to overtime, killing off a penalty because of that. And I still I am confident that was offsides, but I've yet to see any sort of video that can show where the puck is when the player enters. And that's the challenge with that, is that it doesn't seem like there's any overhead camera angles on those blue lines so that you can actually see where that puck is in time and space. But there's a CC player who is easily 6 feet into the zone by the time the puck hits the ice. So the question is just, where is he when the puck completely crosses the blue line 8 feet in the air?
Yeah, the puck was definitely in the air at that point. I got some video. Obviously, this is from an iPhone up in 216, so you're only going to get it as good as you're going to get it. I'll have to send it to you after this. I will feature it, obviously, if you're watching this on YouTube. I think it was a worthwhile challenge for UNO, even though they went into overtime a man down, but nobody scored in that overtime period. An entertaining period, though. UNO had some great opportunities. The game was going to a shootout. The last time they were in a shootout was against North Dakota back on November 5th, and we won that game against the Fighting Hawks. But this time, our luck was not as good. UNO did not put any past Caden and Barrico. We've talked about the freshman goaltender for Colorado College, very talented guy this season. Mueller and Weiss couldn't put it in on him. Colorado College got 2 shots in on Simon Lacosi. What did you think of the shootout, Jason? What did you think of UNO getting 1 point for the tie, Colorado College getting 2, and UNO coming out with 3 points in this series against Colorado College?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a missed opportunity. The 3 points, helps us. It puts us in a 3-way tie. It still keeps Denver technically in reach. It gives us enough distance on Duluth and Colorado College that, we've got some breathing room to that. But we've talked about it, these are the types of games that you even if it doesn't end up mattering for home ice, it's one of those games that you go back, man, find a way to get one more point against Colorado College, or, the two that we lost in Colorado Springs, find a way to get a point at least out of those, or a win out of one of those and split that series. Those are the types of things that are like, well, we'd be playing Miami, or we'd be playing, Duluth on an injury stretch or something. Like we could have had a better matchup in our first round if it wasn't for that play. And so it just means the guys are going to have to buckle down. And we're still in the need of probably at least 3 wins here to secure home ice down the stretch, especially when you look at, who the different teams have and what matchups are. So if UNO wants that home ice advantage in the first round of the NCHC playoffs, it's probably going to take 3 more wins out of here. And we've got Miami coming up, so you got to find a way to get 2 of them there. And then you've got 4 games to try to steal one.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting. Currently, Denver sits in first place, as you alluded to, with 41 points. UNO is in a 3-way tie for second place with Western Michigan and St. Cloud. All 3 have 33 points. Then Minnesota Duluth, who was off this weekend, sitting there in 5th place with 23 points. Colorado College, who had a good weekend against us, 23 points. And North Dakota, sitting down there in 7th with 21, and Miami bringing up the rear with 9 points. They'll be our opponent this upcoming weekend. Certainly great position for UNO to be in, but as you alluded to, 4 games against Colorado College this season, 12 possible conference points. We only get 3 out of that. That is a tough pill to swallow. Colorado College has seemingly had our number the past couple seasons. So it's going to be interesting, as you've mentioned, how the next couple weeks ago, you got Miami on the road, St. Cloud coming into Baxter Arena for our final home series of the regular season. And then we end the season, as we always do, against North Dakota, and we'll be playing them up at the Ralph in Grand Forks. But a good position to be in the NCHC standings. So we'll just have to see how things shake out the next couple weeks. But as always, we've got to talk about our players of the week, Jason. I, as always, will let you go first here. Lots of good options to pick this weekend for the series against Colorado College.
Well, I'll take the obvious one off the board. Then we've got to put Mueller up there as our first player of the weekend. Starts us off scoring both nights. Is just like we talked about when we did our game recap. He was the player we need him to be, the player that we expect him to be. He's really becoming a reliable goal scorer, point producer, which is huge. But he's also a very smart player and a huge asset for the UNO hockey team right now. So I think we've got to put him up there. And now you get the challenge of, I've got like 5 names in my head that you get to pick. So I'm curious which one of them you take.
Yeah, Ty Mueller. You're absolutely right. Great awareness, great hockey IQ. He's just been a pleasant surprise the past 2 seasons. I remembered when they recruited him, I did a recruiting profile, and the picture they had with his midget team, he looked like he was 12. This was back in 2019. So I'm amazed he's here and he's in his 2nd season. He looked so young, but he's had a great first couple of seasons for UNO. 12 goals, 12 assists on the season. And like I mentioned, that odd stat where he's gotten the scoring started for UNO in 6 games this season. 7 if you count the exhibition against Mankato. So, yeah, great pick. I thought about picking Caden Bolson for his terrific goal and his terrific play on Friday night. But I've got to go with our guy, Jason. I've got to go with Tyler Weiss. That rocket of a shot in overtime on Friday night to get UNO the overtime win was absolutely fantastic. He has 4 goals, 19 assists on the season. As we said, he's not always a big goal scorer, but Tyler had a goal and assist on the weekend. Very nearly had 2 goals when he got the assist on that Randall power play goal on Saturday night. So good weekend for the Mavs. Obviously, we were hoping to get 6 points out of the series, but we'll take 3. It keeps us in a good spot in the conference race. All right, so turning to our things you missed. at Baxter Arena. Well, I'll tell you what, Jason, there were a lot of things, and I'm hoping I don't miss a bunch of them as we're talking here. I can't tell you how many notes I have. I took all the notes on both of the games this weekend and the upcoming series against Miami. Bridget did all of the things you missed at Baxter Arena. We're going to need a production assistant on this podcast, Jason, if they keep doing all these interesting things during the games. Friday, of course, was Military Appreciation Night, sponsored by Woodman Life. We talked about that a little bit on last week's episode. They handed out little flags to the fans as you came in the door to wave during the game and during the national anthem, which I thought was very, very nice. Jimmy Weber, a country recording artist, sang the national anthem. For those who don't know, and those who don't remember, Jimmy Weber did the national anthem quite a few times when UNO was playing downtown at the CenturyLink Center. He would also be in the main lobby sometimes playing his guitar as people came into those games down at the CenturyLink Center. So he was a fixture during those years when we played down there, but we haven't seen him, I don't think, at Baxter Arena. So it was nice to see him back. He also sang during both of the intermission, the first and second intermission on Friday night. We had a large flag for the national anthem during the game. They've done that before. It's always neat to see them come out. It's always fun to watch how timid they are on that slick ice. So already before the game started, Jason, there were all kinds of things going on. In addition, we had the military appreciation jerseys. I got to ask you real briefly here. Seeing the jerseys in person, because I know you were a little bit tepid on the jerseys in last week's episode. What did you think after seeing them in person? Be totally honest with us, Jason. What did you think?
I think they're good, not great. You know, they're not my favorite jersey of jerseys, but I still like them, kind of thing. It'll be interesting. Obviously, this podcast is going to air after the auction closes, so we'll know whose goes for what, kind of thing. But I remember scrolling through the auction site going, interesting. You know, that one's been bid up quite a bit. I wonder, sometimes I worry if mom and dad are bidding against each other for some of these guys.
I was contemplating recording this podcast after the auction ends. But I thought, I don't want this podcast to get out any later in the week because last week's was a little bit late. We got it out on Wednesday. So we'll have to see if I end up getting one. I just, I keep looking at the guys that aren't getting bid up. So we'll have to see who I end up getting. But like you said, it is interesting to see how much some of the jerseys are going for and some of the others aren't going for. So did you bid on any jerseys, Jason?
I have not yet. I know how I have had my fair share of experiences with auctions on charity event stuff. So like getting in early is kind of just a waste of time. So auction ends in, I don't know, a few hours or something like that from when we're recording this. And so I'll be jumping on here close to the end and say, obviously Weiss is always on my list to keep an eye on, but yeah, we'll see. There's a surprising, I don't know if we want to say on the podcast or not, there's a surprising player who's pushing the 4-figure mark on him. So
yeah, that's Tyconic's jersey. He's garnering some bank on that jersey. I'll be interested to see how much that ends up going for. After the podcast, I will let you know who I'm trying to get. So you don't bid against me, Jason, because I got to have one of those jerseys for the collection and for the sake of this podcast. So
you worried you don't stand a chance if I'm the one against you?
Yep. And the other big thing, obviously, a sellout crowd. Great to see so many people at the game. Obviously, not every seat was full, but I was really excited to see UNO push for a sellout on a weekend that wasn't against a name opponent. Over the years, they've tried sellouts for like the big name teams. North Dakota. I remember back when we were at the CenturyLink Center and we were still in the CCHA, they would do sellout games for Ohio State, Michigan, etc. So it was nice to see them do one for a series against CC, because it's a series where you have a better chance of winning the game sometimes. And this was a very competitive, very entertaining series for those fans who came on Friday night and got to see that overtime win and the goal by Tyler Weiss. That was a great game for them to be out. So 2 great crowds this weekend, Jason. And yeah, I thought that was a lot of fun. So a great military night. And then on Saturday nights, Jason and I were sitting up in the stands early before the game, just chatting about the team, chatting about how they did on Friday nights. And a couple of promotion staff members come up to us as we're sitting there and ask us if we want to do on-ice promotions. And I will tell you this, Jason, even though people watch this podcast and they see us talking and I try to be really outgoing, doing stuff like that in person is the kind of thing that makes me completely nervous. Jason jumped in and picked Plinko as the promotion to do, which you really don't have to do anything other than watch the digital puck drop and see where it lands. Jason ultimately didn't end up doing that promotion. Jolene, his wife, did. I picked the Nebraska Lottery Puck Shuffle. It's kind of like the shell game. They have 3 helmets, and then there'll be a puck under one of the helmets on the video board, and then those will rotate and shuffle around, and you have to follow it and pick which number it's under when they're done moving around. They took me down towards the end of the first period to do that. We walked through the bowels of Baxter Arena. I waited to do it on the bench. Bridget and I were involved in an on-ice promotion on our wedding night back in 2004 when we took our wedding party to the games at the CenturyLink Center. And it didn't go well. And I've been hearing about it for the last 18 years, Jason. So I did not want to mess this up. I tried to be in the zone. I really concentrated on the screen. I got it right. I won $75 in Nebraska lottery tickets, which I have not scratched off yet. But your daughter, Maddie, was just fascinated, wondering how much money we would end up winning. But the promotion was successful. And so thank you to the gentleman who works for Learfield who came and got us to do that promotion. Thanks to Avery Howard, who was on the mic for that promotion. Your wife ended up doing the Plinko during the second intermission. She ended up winning T-shirts for our section. We didn't end up getting T-shirts for our section, Jason, but
we kind of got screwed on that one, huh?
Yeah. But she and Maddie ended up getting T-shirts, so I guess that's okay. They are the white Baxter Arena T-shirts that we have featured on here before. But I would say, Jason, the most enjoyable thing about the Saturday night game and the things you missed was on pregame, our niece Scotland was down at ice level for the skate around down by where the players come out, down by the player bench. And Victor Mancini got her a puck, and Cameron Berg wanted to do the same thing. So that was awesome. And UNO featured that on their Instagram account. So again, if you're watching this on YouTube, we will be showing that video. That was just a fun little thing.
I heard.
Turning to our next series, Jason, we're headed to take on the Miami RedHawks. Last place, as we mentioned earlier, in the NCHC. They are 2-13-3 in conference play this season. I mentioned on last week's podcast that I watched their February 3rd and 4th series at St. Cloud State, and both of those were very entertaining games. They both went to overtime. Miami lost in shootouts to the Huskies both nights, but very competitive against a good St. Cloud team. Players to watch, as I mentioned when we played them back in January, junior forward Matthew Barbolini has 9 goals and 12 assists on the season. Certainly in nets, junior goaltender Ludwig Pearson, who tends to have good games against UNO. is a player to watch. I know their record hasn't been good, but they did split at North Dakota in the first half of the season. So always an entertaining series when UNO plays them. It was great to get the sweep of them at Baxter Arena last month, but we have to remember last season, Miami went 3-1 against UNO, and certainly having talked about the Colorado College series and only getting 3 out of a possible 12 conference points against them, you never know what's going to happen when you go rolling into Oxford. It's a very interesting place to play. Bridget and I went there the season that their current arena opened, and we got a tour of the place, a neat little facility. The program has not had the success that they had in the early 2000s, but what do you think about this series coming in, Jason? What do you think about UNO's chances? How do you think they're going to do against the RedHawks in Oxford this upcoming weekend?
It's not a cakewalk. Miami, they're going to be a team that's hungry, just looking for, what I call a development win. They know that they're not going to catch North Dakota. They're certainly out of a home playoff, run. So they know that they're going someplace in a month, basically, to play a team, right? And so realistically, like, their season is just on, building blocks. What can we do now that we can look at and say, okay, that's working for us. We're going to do more of that next year. They're going to be looking at a lot of their younger guys, their freshmen, their sophomores, to see, what roles they can play, where they can play, how they play, those types of things. They're probably already looking towards next year in the sense of what we do now builds us up for success in the future. Colorado College was that way the last couple years, and you can see where they've come. But, Miami they can still look back on their season and say, we beat UMass Lowell, towards the beginning of the season. They split with St. Cloud. You mentioned the North Dakota splits. They've played some good teams and found success. So, UNO, this has to be a redemption year. We have to go in and say, we didn't get it done against Colorado College, and that's on us. And last year we didn't have success against Miami, and that hurt us. And so this year's going to be different. And if we play our game, I like our odds. Like, if we can be productive, and if, our seniors can be our seniors, and kind of really guide this younger team through, then I like our chances. And, look at the standings and say, like, here's 2 of our 3 wins. We need to come out here with 2 of our 3 wins so that we can go into this. Because if we don't, you're not out of it, but you're really in a tough spot heading into the last 2 series of the season. So I think UNO goes in. I think it's going to be a close game on Friday because the nerves will be a little high. But I think we'll find a way to win. And then I think Saturday we'll find a way to win too. Miami takes a lot of penalties. We need to keep our heads on. We can't get into the trouble that we got into on Friday versus CC. Stay out of the box and let our power play go to work. Let our power play do what it's done this season, and I think we'll be good.
Like you said, do not underestimate the Miami RedHawks. Do not underestimate a team playing for pride. The other thing we have to be really careful about is starting to looking ahead to the series against St. Cloud, looking ahead to North Dakota, looking ahead to potential home ice for the NCHC playoffs. I know a lot of people have been talking about that. As the old adage goes, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. Take care of business. Go to Oxford, Ohio, and try to get 2 good wins against a struggling and an ailing Miami team. And look, that Miami team is going to give you everything that they have, because teams that are in the position that they are in, it's not a lot of fun losing games, and it's got to be demoralizing sometimes. So they're going to play hard. They're going to play well. They're going to try to finish the season strong. We've got to be smart. Just to mix it up a little bit, rather than picking the sweep, I'm going to say we go in and we split. I'm going to say we lose on Friday night at Miami, and I'm going to say we win on Saturday night there. We'll just have to see. I like your prediction a lot better, Jason, but you never know. Start times for those games, for those who are here in Omaha, it'll be 6:05 Omaha time on Friday night. and 4:05 p.m. Omaha time on Saturday night. So kind of an early start for that Saturday game. If you're watching those games on NCHC TV, or if you're listening to the radio broadcasts on 1290 AM.
So, elephant in the room we have to talk about, though. What do you think of our goaltending controversy? Do you expect Lakotsi to start both games?
This is an interesting thing you brought up. I thought Simon played well both nights against Colorado College this weekend. You and I had taken the mindset in last week's podcast of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We thought that they would stick, and I think we thought that they should stick with Kuharski on Friday night and then Lakotsi on Saturday nights. I'm going to say that they go back to the rotation for the Miami series. What do you think, Jason?
I thought they should have stuck with the rotation because I think there's aspects of it that led to the success that we'd seen. It's hard going back to it though now because, like you said, he didn't play bad. Simon played a good game, and I like our odds, especially in the Saturday game. Putting on if our goalie only gives up 2 and we got 41 shots, I expect that we've got a good chance of winning those games, right? Like that's a recipe for a 4-2, 5-2 kind of win, and unfortunately, just because of the way things fell, we ended up in that situation with a loss in a shootout. So I can't really fault him for goals. I can't see a reason to take him necessarily out of the net, which is, I think, the hard spot that the coaching staff's in right now is what does it do to his psyche if you pull him out after, good performances? So I don't know. I think they should go back to it. I just don't know how you do that to the kid.
I look at this series against Miami. I think you give both of them playing time just to get them prepared for the last 2 series of the regular season. St. Cloud, North Dakota, good teams. They are teams that can put up a lot of points. I think I would go back to the rotation for this weekend just to give them both playing time. I'm glad you brought that up because that is an interesting story that is developing this season. But in the meantime, as I always say, be sure to follow Mavpuck on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find links to our social channels at mavpuck.com, as well as back episodes of this podcast, which we encourage you to watch, we encourage you to listen to, we encourage you to like, and we encourage you to subscribe because that keeps us going. It helps the algorithm on the platforms that we're hosted on. And it just helps Jason and I to have a good attitude about this podcast because we want people to tune in and we want people to enjoy it. So until next time, Jason, go Mavs.
Go Mavs.